Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France, and of course you good old boys in Latin America. You know we love you in Africa. We also love you up in Canada, Big C, but there's no one we love more than you good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave. Big C, how's it going for you good old boys on February 2nd, Big C? I've been drinking too much. 2018, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I think some time has snuck past you, Charlton, and so when you look at it, you think it's January. I mean, we roll into Black History Month,
yeah.
February, Super Bowl month,
yeah.
Everything all in one shot. So I guess you had too many shots.
Yeah, I guess I've been partying for the Super Bowl a little bit too soon. They said the game kicks off on Sunday, but my party started last night, Big C. I do want to say for all the people in California, man, it's so hot. It's hot out here at Big C. It's almost like 70 degrees, and people are complaining that it's too hot. And up in the Minnesota, they have, I think it's going to be about 4 degrees at kickoff, Big C. Your thoughts?
Oh, minus 11 tonight, Charlton.
Wow.
And so you think about it, just bone chilling.
Yeah.
You know, those are some very hardy people up there in the Midwest part of the country, Charlton, that will happen to, brave living in the Twin Cities this time of the year, Charlton, because even in the summertime, there's no breeze around it because the mosquito is the state bird. So, you get it from both sides up there.
I'm sure. I'm wondering why there's not more people from the south up there. If mosquitoes look like birds, you know how many more mosquitoes can fly around than birds can fly around because they're so fast, Big C, your thoughts?
Well, they buzz in you. They're the most irritating sound when you're laying around, Charlton, and they buzz by your ear. We get them down here really bad in the south.
Yeah.
And they make you beat yourself upside the head. People are like, what's wrong with you? You're slapping yourself. Because you can't see the mosquito.
Yeah,
They're almost like a Donald Trump truth. You don't see it.
Yeah, they do sneak up on you, Big C. But just like Donald Trump, wherever they show up, you tend to get a red spot someplace, Big C. Read between the lines. I do want to say this segment sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. You can drive a car or you can drive a Cadillac. So, Big C, obviously we have the biggest game of them all, and we celebrate Black History Month. In fact, Black History Month is so important to the NFL. They moved the biggest game in the universe into February. The Super Bowl is also celebrated Black History Month, Big C. It hasn't always been that way. Talk about, if you can, what it means to have this great game in a month that honors about 75% of the players who play in the NFL, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I don't know if they realized what they were doing when they moved the Super Bowl to February to celebrate the historic events of Black Americans, and that the Super Bowl would be the most the most watched sporting event in the world and celebrated during that month.
Yeah.
I don't know if they will speak about it during the game that, the Super Bowl is part of Black History Month. And when you look at the participation of the number of athletes and coaches that are involved in this game, Charlton, of that African descent, how important it is culturally to have something like this highlight the month that's resonated out for this one culture, Charlton, in America.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And we were talking about it being Black History Month and all the homage that we want to pay to some of the great people in the African-American culture. And of course it goes back, we all talk about Muhammad Ali because he's more contemporary, he's more new in the minds and in the thoughts and the hearts of American sports fans, Big C. But even going back, before Muhammad Ali, you talked about it before, the Jack Johnson and how much he meant in the world of sports, and we all think about, even though we don't talk about it too much, I look at what Jesse Owens did and how he went around the world and showcased the dominance of African Americans. And again, I think it's more important that those guys were trailblazers more so than now, because they came back home, Big C, and they were still dealing with Jim Crow and segregation, Big C. Talk about the mindset. That's what you call a Super Bowl mind. How did they manage to do that, knowing that when they came back home, that's when they fell out of favor, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, they didn't realize when they came back to the States that they would be so mistreated by the population of this country, Charlton. They thought that they would be revered for the heroics and spectacular accomplishments that they had achieved during the Olympics in the face of evil, Charlton, that they showed that good sportsmanship would outweigh the weight of evil.
Yeah.
But when they came back home, the evilness that was in Germany did not equal the evilness that they had to prepare for coming back home, Charlton. You think about being an Olympic champion, Charlton, that, the highest honor in the world at that time for an amateur athlete.
Yeah.
And to come to the U.S., you could not even walk into the front door of a hotel or a restaurant. Being a 4-time Olympian, Charlton, you had to go through the kitchen.
Yeah.
You could not live in a decent neighborhood, as we would call it at that time in America, Charlton.
Yeah.
The toughest thing for Jesse Owens, I think, more than anything else, is that he was reduced down to earning a living, Charlton.
Yeah.
Running against horses.
Isn't that crazy?
In stakes races.
Yeah.
Is that he had to race animals.
Yeah.
And when he did eventually get a job, Charlton, to support his family, he, just like Jackie Robinson's younger brother, Charlton, ended up being a janitor. You think about it. A man in America walking around with 4 Olympic gold medals around his neck.
Yeah.
The best employment that he could get was working as a janitor. Now, I'm not saying that that's embarrassing work, Charlton, because there's thousands of them in America.
Exactly.
That do an admirable job.
Yeah.
But you would think that the feats that this man achieved athletically, and you look at other gold medal Olympians, Charlton, in that era, were they reduced to being a janitor in America, cleaning up behind other people? No, they were given nice jobs, Charlton, nice cushy, posh situations because of the color of their skin.
Yeah.
But they denigrated Jesse Owens because of the color of his skin, saying that you're no more than a floor sweeper.
Yep, and that's something that people overcame. And that's why I want to just show for a lot of the young men and women all over the universe, Bixie, all over the world, especially for Black History Month, that it's not just about who won a game and who's gonna win the Super Bowl and who's gonna play for what NBA basketball team, who's gonna get drafted first into the NBA or NFL or baseball. It's always about taking some time to understand what was great about Ali is that Ali came around at the time where you could actually get on television, you could get on radio, and people accepted you more worldwide. There were always a lot of African-American men, very talented men, that did not have access to the major airwaves. Talk about how prescient Ali was, Big C. He knew that he was given a great platform, and that, for this reason, that's why so many of us have the opportunity today, because Ali grabbed a hold of that, and he was not an embarrassment when he got the microphone in front of him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, not many African Americans prior to Ali were given that chance to utilize that platform, Charlton. They were always kept on the back burners, and their managers would always answer the questions for them. If you think about Sonny Liston, Sugar Ray Robinson, even the great Joe Louis, they were not put in front of microphones on a regular basis, Charlton.
Yeah.
And television was just getting into its influence age at that time when Ali came along.
Yep.
So you could get that same day broadcast from the television, Charlton. But Muhammad Ali, he had a person who appreciated him.
Yeah.
That allowed him more time on air than anybody else, and that was the great Howard Cosell. When you take a Princeton law professor, Charlton, that people give a lot of credit and credence to, and he's out there, in the forefront with this young man. That's what allowed Ali to elevate himself above others.
Yeah.
Plus, he said things that irritated people, and everybody was waiting on him to skip up, to mess up at what he was saying. That's what they wanted more than anything else, is that they wanted to have Ali say something negative, which he never would. And so they kept the platform open for him.
Yeah.
And all he did was expand every time that he did that.
Yep.
And he became more and more of this voice of a culture. And that's what bothered people about Ali so much.
Yeah.
Is that it got to the point that people were starting to say he needs to be silenced.
Yeah.
It's almost like, and I'll tell you somebody today who would remind of him, and this is this LeVar guy.
LeVar Ball.
In Los Angeles.
Yeah.
He is what Ali was at one point, but Ali had a purpose behind what he said.
Yeah.
And that's what irritated people so much.
Yeah.
Is that what he said, and it meant something. It's like when you see Colin Kaepernick saying social injustice.
Yeah.
This is what Ali preached on also. And people got bothered by that.
Yeah.
They said, we have to find a way to silence him. Because what he's saying is the truth, and we can't have the people that we've been sheltering from the truth hear this.
Yeah. that's something else that you're bringing it up, that you brought up Colin Kaepernick's name. I know we'll be touching on the Super Bowl also in today's Super Bowl show. And I was just looking at some of the stats on different athletes throughout different Super Bowls, all the way back to the original Super Bowl. And of all of those men, this is coming up on Super Bowl 52. We've had 51 Super Bowls. Would you believe, Big C, that a guy who still can't get a job has the highest rushing total for a quarterback in Super Bowl history, and that's Colin Kaepernick, also the highest rushing total in the history of the NFL when it comes to NFC Championship games. Did that against Green Bay back in the day. And I just want to get your thoughts with the backdrop of everything that we've learned. We're not talking to ignorant people. We're talking to people who read. With the backdrop of everything that's happened, and there are people who are going to be shoveled around looking for work. I know that Alex Smith just got hired on by the Redskins, but will there come a time in 2018 season when someone says, we're tired of being racist, we're going to give this guy a tryout and let his work show for itself the same way it did in the NFC Championship games against Green Bay back in the day and also in the Super Bowl against the Ravens? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, I kind of tend to think this way, is that the Washington Redskins will change their name from the Redskins, before Colin Kaepernick gets another job in the NFL.
Yeah.
And that lets you know how racist the league is. This is a racist symbol that they use to denigrate a culture of people, but Daniel Snyder doesn't care about that. He wants to be paid for that symbol to be changed, which shouldn't be that way, Charlton. But Colin Kaepernick, his stance, it's bigger than the NFL, Charlton, and society has a problem with that.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about the owners and you look at their political affiliation, Charlton, and you got the guy that they politically affiliate with talking about fire the SOBs, okay?
Yeah.
And so they don't want to cross lines with him, even though the stock market took the biggest fall in the past 2 years.
Yeah.
One day fall, Charlton.
Under him.
I wonder how much credit he's going to take for that. Because that's what his presidency has been predicated on, is how well the stock market has done.
Yeah.
But when it fell 650 points today, that's a record fall for a day, Charlton. How is he going to react to that?
Yeah.
So he deflects from that, coming out with this, dossier today by the Republicans, that's full of, hearsay and allegations, something that the Republicans made up. It's not even an official document from our investigative agency. It's something from the Republicans.
Did it have?
But, when I look at these athletes, what they have to go through, on and off the field, it is tough being an African American athlete at any time throughout history, Charlton, because you are envied by the people who pull you over, because of the type of vehicles you drive, because of what you wear.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. You're not judged as a person when you're first seen.
Yeah. That's something else that you're bringing it up, Big C. I was just going to ask you, and it goes back into what happens in our society. And I want to bring up this thing because it is Black History Month. I know Emmett Till, when he was looking at a Caucasian woman, there's some white men that beat him, and murdered him. And even though they admitted that they did it, they didn't do any time for it. And I want to contrast that into this lady that works in the adult industry. I think Donald Trump's friend, the one he gave $130, was $130 that he gave this woman, Big C?
I think that was per second, Charlton.
Oh, okay, hold on. $130,000. Okay, sometimes my Google gets stuck, Big C, and it don't round off all the numbers as $130,000. And I think about that and how going into the State of the Union and how there was no mention of how to stand up for women. And I look at what happened with Emmett Till, and I just want to see how for people who don't understand what it's like and how we've overcome so much, never complaining, just doing it anyway. And that's why I'm proud of so many young black men all over the universe. Even when you look at how we look at men and women and the race thing. One guy's murdered, a young man's murdered for looking at a woman. Another man pays a woman who meets the same profile $130,000 for whatever they did, and it's not even talked about that much, other than it's not true, blah blah blah. We know it's probably most likely true, Big C. Why that much attention given to it, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, the problem that I have with it is that so many people saying that the woman's uncreditable, okay, because of the industry that she's in.
Yeah.
But I guarantee all those people that are saying that she's uncredible have watched her videos.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So they know that she's credible. She does her work.
Yeah.
And enjoys it.
Yeah,
okay?
that's true.
So
and
she made more from him than she probably did from any movies that she had ever done.
Yeah.
But when you think about that, and we look at the State of the Union address.
Yeah.
And there were never any points in the State of Union address where you talked about protecting of American women.
Yeah.
You say American citizens, but you never talked about protecting America's women from these heinous acts that are going on every day in America, every 20 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
He didn't address that.
Yeah.
And that's where he fell short when he talks about this country being great. This country will only be as great, with Charlton, as the women that are in it. Okay?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
The women that can stand alone and be solid as part of American society. And I'm not talking about just being a housewife.
Yeah.
I'm talking about being pillars.
Yeah.
And we have so many of them. But we cannot allow the men of power to continue to abuse, whether it's in sports, whether it's in the business world, Charlton, the women of America.
Yeah.
And there has to be drastic consequences every time that this has occurred.
Yeah.
There was an article that came out in a Northeastern magazine, Charlton, yesterday.
Yeah.
Where they were being hard on ESPN the way that they challenged Tom Izzo after a basketball game in a press conference. And that they put him on the spot.
Oh, really?
And they treated him unfairly. If Tom Izzo wasn't hiding anything, he would have told the truth.
Yeah, you would think.
And spoke openly, Charlton.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have said, well, we're investigating this. We need to wait till my attorney's around.
Yeah.
If you had nothing to hide as an administrator at this university, at a state institution where you're taking government funds, millions of them a year, based on your contract, you're making several $1 million a year of government and taxpayer money, and yet you refuse to answer questions about sexual misconduct under your watch over the past 8 years.
Wow.
Then you're hiding something, Charlton.
That's something we gotta always bring up, because we want to make sure that women feel safe. And unfortunately, they say that there's some studies that show that, I guess, on Super Bowl weekend, that domestic violence goes up and domestic abuse goes up. And we hope that we can be on the forefront, the vanguards of stopping that and calling light to it. And again, that's why we tell any woman, just call 911. Don't try to think your way out of it. Don't try to talk your way out of it. Most bad guys don't become so tough when the police show up, Big C. So just keep that in mind, because you got to stay safe and no one has a right to put their hands on you. I do want to go back to some things that for Black History Month, and as we come into some sports in a little bit, I think about some of the great men that have made us laugh over the years, Big C. And I'll go back to one of the greatest, to one of the most, I guess, contemporary greats. I think the greatest, maybe Richard Pryor, at least from my day. There was also a guy by the name of Robin Harris who never had the chance to live out a full life the way Richard Pryor did. And then I know we have Kevin Hart doing a lot of traveling around the country on his tours, but I still think pound for pound, money for money, the greatest comedian right now, I would say, is Dave Chappelle, Big C, even though he doesn't have the same type of audience that maybe some of the other guys who are more mainstream. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Dave Chappelle is very political in his actions, Charlton. That's why he doesn't get the laughs of the other guys. But you have to sit down and you have to listen to Dave and what he says. You know, he will open up your mind's exploration of his factual thoughts. I mean, he won a Grammy this year, Charlton, for the best comedic album. That's how good Dave Chappelle is.
Amazing.
Dave Chappelle is so politically versed, Charlton, that he walked away from a $68 million contract a few years ago from a network, Charlton, that he created. Because it wasn't going in the direction that he wanted to do, just like Richard Pryor had done back in the 70s when he was the first comedian on NBC. He had his own live show, and he wasn't feeling what was going on at that time. But you have to be clairvoyant in a way and politically aware of what's going on. And that's what Dave Chappelle is. You know, because he talks about real life events that's going on, whether it's in politics, whether it's in his family's life, Charlton, or even talking about growing up, neighbors. That's what Dave Chappelle is, and that's what a comedian can do. When you listen to a true comedian, they can make you recognize yourself in their story. And that's what Dave Chappelle does.
I really appreciate the comedy that man brings to the show. And so I hope that we get to see more of him. I know Kevin Hart is out there doing his thing, but he's more comedically, I guess, acceptable. A lot of profanity out of Kevin Hart, but that's what people want. I think sometimes if you have the wit, you don't have to use the same kind of profanity, but everybody's different strokes for different folks, and we all know that's true. But I really appreciate the wit that Dave Chappelle has, Big C. And so how we contrast that with this greatest game in the United States, the Super Bowl, the granddaddy of them all, the Big C Championship. Could you understand that? It's the Big C Championship. They're playing for the Big C Championship, Big C. And so even with that said, I want to look at some of the young men that have made up this game. And we go way back to the day. I know we can look at Super Bowl I and talking about, we've had 51 of these things, and of course we're going to crown Super Bowl champion number 52. But going back into the sport, 1967, the Green Bay Packers beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course the Green Bay was in the NFL and the Chiefs were the AFL. That was it was a 35-10 game, and it's so much different now, Big C, than what it was back then. It was not as glamorous. It was something they were trying to do to see if they could find a foothold in the American public. And you know, a lot of the stadiums were, I would say, maybe 60 to 70% full. Talk about the big sweeping change from Super Bowl I, Big C, to Super Bowl going to be 52 coming up just over the weekend, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, even that inaugural Super Bowl in Los Angeles, Charlton, was only 60% full when you think about the capacity of the Coliseum at that time.
Yeah.
But this game has gone over such a dramatic change over the years. You know, really it was like arcade.
Yeah.
When the Super Bowl first started, to the spectacular event that has become in today's modern era of football.
Yeah.
That, you know, it must see. You think about that first Super Bowl, you could have got in for $14, Charlton.
Isn't that something?
$14.
Yeah.
The least expensive tickets for Sunday's game this week is $3,000.
Wow.
Think about it.
Wow.
What you make, you know, a day or so, something like that. $3,000.
Yeah.
And so that's where this game has manifested to, Charlton,
yeah.
when we look at how it has exploded over time.
Yeah.
You know, but in the previous 51 Super Bowls, Charlton, we've only had one African-American head coach, when you think about it, Lovie Smith.
Yeah.
Who took the Chicago Bears to a Super Bowl, you know, led by Rex Grossman, you know, a journeyman quarterback at best.
Yeah.
And when you think about Lovie's record when he was with the Chicago Bears, Charlton, I believe he was about 86
and
68 as a head coach, which was a better record than what John Gruden had, you know, in his tenure with the Raiders and the Buccaneers. But Lovie Smith, you know, has only had one other shot in the NFL, and that was with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Since then, he's basically been exiled as a head coach. You know, you think about it. You've gone to a Super Bowl as a head coach, and you can't get another job in the NFL. But the NFL, when we look at how this game has expanded, you know, we talk about the Patriots and how the closeness of their victories, that their victories have averaged just about 4 points. In their 5 Super Bowl victories. The first close game in NFL history was Super Bowl IV, Charlton, between the Dallas Cowboys and the Baltimore Colts at that time. When Jim O'Brien kicked the game-winning field goal as time ran out, a 33-yard field goal that led the Colts to their first Super Bowl victory.
That's something else, Big C. And even going back in the day when we look at some of the greater games in the Super Bowl, and I know a lot of people have their own favorites and what teams they followed over the years. I think one of the first dynasties, of course, was Green Bay and their success they had. But more contemporary, I guess, if you go to the 72 Dolphins, and you think about that Dolphins team that they beat the Washington Redskins, and that game was also played at the Coliseum in Los Angeles, 14-7. I remember that being a boring football game, Big C, but I remember watching the whole thing, and at the end of the day, I looked back, and when you watch it now on YouTube or some of the videos that are out there, you see how skinny the players were. I mean, could Bob Greasy do his thing today the way, you know, some of the players now? He's not much skinnier than Tom Brady is now, but players have a better weight and training mechanism that they use now. Is year-round as opposed to just a couple of months in the season. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, if you look at that Super Bowl when the Dolphins had their perfect season, they may have had 2 players on that entire team that could play in today's NFL. May have had 2 players. That's it.
Yeah.
Because the physicality of the players, the size and strength have changed over the years.
Yeah.
And those players that could have played may have been able to play just because of some speed that they had. That was it.
Murphy Morris, perhaps? Mercury Morris?
Well, I don't know. Even Mercury could have played in the backfield. Paul Warfield could have played a little receiver. Mercury might have played.
Yeah.
You may have gotten a defensive back that could have played, but, you think about Nick Bonacani playing middle linebacker at about 210 pounds, Charlton.
Yeah.
At 5'10", 5'11", he could have. Nick Bonacani's weight just not what allowed him to survive under these huge hulking offensive linemen that they have in the NFL now, where the average weight is around 320 pounds plus.
Yeah.
He could not have withstood that for more than a quarter. So, Charlton, that defense of the Dolphins would have been rush shot. And Manny Fernandez playing defensive tackle at about 250 pounds.
Yeah.
That's the size of an NFL linebacker these days.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And so the size has really made a big difference. Now, I'm going to swing you up to the organization that started the talk of the steroids. We know it's gone on in different generations. But when I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and how dominant that Steeler team was, Big C, and we know when they had the guys that always lift weight. I mean, Webster was one of the main guys that was always, maybe bigger than life. And a lot of people were asking, how could he put so much bulk on a small frame? And we know they would say he was a weightlifting devotee. And all the time, we looked at so many of these great players that never were questioned the way players are questioned nowadays about what they did, how they did it. Did they use steroids? Did they not? Do you think now, because of everything we know, that his legacy, say, will be tainted, Big C, because of what happened with all the steroid use, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, that's the thing. The difference between the NFL and Major League Baseball is that here they want to say that they want to keep people out of Major League Baseball's Hall of Fame because they felt that they played during the juice era.
Yeah.
Well, you have to look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, Charlton. If you're going to keep people out of a Hall of Fame, because everybody knew when they walked on the field, it was going to be a long, tough day.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you walk out there, and this was before everybody else wore Taylor jerseys.
Yeah.
They had them, and they did that for an intimidation factor, Charlton.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that you had these jerseys cut to fit these massive biceps on these linemen. And I'll give you a perfect example. Everybody will look at Mike Webster and say, well, how can he put so much weight on that small frame, which Mike wasn't but 5'11", 5'10 and a half on a good day.
Yeah.
Let me take you out to Larry Brown, who played tight end in the Steelers' first 2 Super Bowls, Charlton.
Yep.
Larry Brown was 6'4", 225-pound tight end.
Yeah.
In the Super Bowl, in the Steelers' 4th Super Bowl victory, Larry Brown played offensive tackle in the last 2 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
But in that 4th Super Bowl, Larry Brown was 6'4", 325 pounds, and chiseled. He went from tight end at 225 after destroying his knee to an all-pro offensive tackle at 325 pounds and chiseled.
Yeah.
He made Mike Webster look small.
Yeah.
He didn't have a stomach. He had about a 40-inch waist, weighing 325 pounds, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when you want to talk about steroid era of teams, Charlton, you have to sit there and slash. I mean, Jack Lambert wasn't crazy for any reason, okay?
No.
To have that type of intensity and insanity, it didn't come natural.
No, that's true.
And when I look at some of the defensive linemen, Ernie Holmes, Steve Furness, these guys. I mean, Steve Corsons, who played guard with the Steelers, ended up with an enlarged heart, and the doctors diagnosed that from too many injections.
Wow.
That not only does the steroids build the body, but you got to think about the 2 hardest working muscles in the body.
Yeah.
And this is the easy way to tell when somebody's on steroids, Charlton.
Yeah.
Look at their jaw. The jaw is the strongest muscle on the body. The jaw muscle is the strongest muscle on the body. And it's the second most used muscle on the body, Charlton.
Wow.
So when you see these enlarged jaws and definition in the neck area, Charlton, that's because of the excessive use of steroids. Also, most steroid users end up with enlarged hearts, Charlton, because the heart never stops pumping and beating.
Yeah.
So your heart starts growing. And that's what happened with Steve Corson.
Yeah.
And many other players that have used that drug to excess.
Well, you think about that, and I know the Steelers they won those 4 Super Bowls in 6 years, and obviously if people knew then, Big C, what we know now, then maybe they would have.
If they knew.
Well, yeah.
Well, everybody knew, Charlie.
Yeah.
There wasn't a player out there that didn't know what the Steelers were doing. Matter of fact, other players started doing it because the Steelers were doing it, trying to keep pace. why do you think they dominated so much during an era?
Yeah.
And everybody else realized to compete, you had to cheat also.
Well, that's interesting.
And once everybody else started cheating, the Steelers era went away.
Well, that's a good point you bring up, Big C. I want to bring you to another team that had a resemblance of dominance. And I go to none other than the Oakland Raiders. And when they had that Super Bowl, their Super Bowl, when you think about what they did to the Vikings down in also that was played at the Rose Bowl down in Pasadena, and the Raiders put a pretty good whipping on them. But that was a team known for stickum and sometimes dirty play. And if you look at John Madden and what he did to build a great organization, they were more feared back then. And it still shames me that they're going to be leaving in Las Vegas, because you bring up the name John Madden and you think Oakland Raiders, you think excellence and just win, baby. And they also had a kind of a reputation in the NFL. Where did their reputation come from? They were not known to be steroid abusers like the Pittsburgh Steelers. But what made their reputation so bad? Is it because they were nasty or just the perception, Big C? Your thoughts?
They were nasty, Charlton. They were rebels. They were outcasts. They were on their last leg. Nobody wanted them.
Yeah.
So they knew whatever they did with the Raiders would be acceptable on the field of play, because they would not be ostracized for that, Charlton.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Raiders' mindset and mentality came from. I mean, Al Davis said, win at all costs.
Yeah.
and that's what his players did. They won at all costs. And, it's like with the Steelers. They won at all costs. And you think about their main Super Bowl adversary, Charlton, that they have Super Bowl rivalry with, the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
And you think about the Dallas Cowboys, how that organization turned around after a couple of losses to the Steelers in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When you started looking at the growth of their linemen, how big they started getting. You look at Randy White.
Yep.
He was a linebacker at the University of Maryland. All of a sudden, he was one of the largest defensive tackles in pro football.
Yeah.
And it was readily known on that roster that had became common, that they started using, as well as throughout the NFL. And people want to say, well, no, that didn't happen. You're just making this stuff up. No. I had a college teammate that when he left college, he was 6'7", 230 as a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
2 years later, being in the NFL, he was 6'7", 270.
Yeah.
And he didn't lift any more weight in pro ball than what he did in college. It's just the team that he went to, that was a common practice. And he talked about it. We were together, and they're like, how did you get so big? He said, man, everybody's using the needle.
Yep. That is so true. I remember a couple of guys that I knew of that played pro, and they were saying, look, if you want to make it, you got to try something, because the guy you're competing with is getting 30 pounds heavier, and he can lift 50 pounds more over the same summertime, Big C. So we know that happens. Let me get your thoughts as we talk about some of the greater teams, back in the past, and we're leading up to the Super Bowl game here, and want to get your thoughts. But I think about Oakland again. They had somewhat of a dominant stretch. They were either losing to Pittsburgh or Miami or beating those guys to get into the Super Bowl. I know they had the win over Minnesota, and then they had Dallas jumped on top of Denver the next year. And then in 79, Pittsburgh and Dallas met. It was a 35-31 victory by the Steelers. That was also down in the Rose Bowl. That was a game that Dallas could have won, but it went back and forth. And I thought it really brought the country together to see the terrible tales.
That game actually, Charlton, was in Miami when Jackie Smith dropped the touchdown in the end zone. The game in the Rose Bowl was the Steelers and the Rams.
Okay, yeah, Steelers and the Rams. So to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and also the Steelers, they're still two of the most favorite, I guess, organizations, franchises in the NFL. And even to this day, the Dallas hasn't been there in a long time. The Steelers have been there recently. But give me your thoughts on, do they still have that same type of fanfare, the way they grabbed the attention of the American eyes when they were met in the Super Bowl down in Miami back in the 70s? Big, so your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you think about the moxie of those two franchises and how much they meant to the early days of the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Because they gave such competitive performances. And you think about it, they both had these legendary head coaches. Even though Jimmy Johnson came in and won a couple Super Bowls with the Cowboys and then followed up by Barry Switzer, everyone still thinks about Tom Landry and the Cowboys. They went to 5 Super Bowls. You got to remember that, Charlton.
Yeah.
5 Super Bowls the Cowboys fit in. So this was a team that was there on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Just like the Steelers.
Yeah.
And so everybody fell in love with America's team.
Yeah.
And they had some iconic games, whether they were playing against the Dolphins, the Colts, the Steelers, Charlton, they had some of the most memorable Super Bowl performances ever.
Yep.
I mean, when they blew out the Denver Broncos down in New Orleans, everybody thought that was the greatest Super Bowl game ever, even though it was only one-sided.
Yeah, that's true, Big C. And so we know that's always going to be the case where people compare the new teams with the older teams. I do want to say that sports is a billion-dollar industry, and boys and girls sports is a foundation to this billion-dollar industry. And for every athletic and sporting event, you need athletic and event insurance. We work with Ben and Mark. They've been around half a century. They work with Big C Sports, whether you're a pro team, a collegiate team, a high school team, even your mom and pop soccer league. When you reach out to them, let them know that Big C sent you at 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Big C, I want to swing up a little bit more to the current time. When we look at still right around the 80s, that transition where we were always looking at the Steelers, we were looking at Oakland, we were looking at Pittsburgh, Dallas, even Minnesota started to get strong. Something happened in the 1981 Super Bowl. The Raiders beat the Philadelphia Eagles 27-10. Only two times the Eagles have been in there. They lost to the Patriots and also the Raiders. And if you look at what happened to Oakland, they moved from Oakland to Los Angeles that next season, which destroyed a lot of momentum. They had a great team that could have stayed in Oakland, and we know they got to the Super Bowl again, but as a Redskins team, just talk about how stupid it would be for some team today to win a Super Bowl and then leave and go to a different part of the state when their interests have to be as high as ever. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, that was even a bad move back at that time after they'd beaten the Eagles to take that move down to Los Angeles, but that move had already been in place.
Yeah.
You think about the NFL owners. That's how moves take place. It's not just one franchise up saying, I'm going to another city. The other owners have to buy into it, Charlton, and they have to take a payoff.
Yeah.
It's all about money. You know, the city of Los Angeles, they thought that they would have deeper pockets than what the city of Oakland had. They thought by being in the Coliseum, an arcade facility, that all of a sudden they would get more fanfare, which is not. The NFL is about luxury.
Yeah.
You look at this U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis, Charlton, one of the most gorgeous facilities ever built. The next two Super Bowls, the one Sunday and the one next year in Atlanta, going to be in the most outlandish facilities that you could ever put a sporting event in, Charlton, as far as fan viewing and amenities inside these facilities. Yeah. Versus, the Los Angeles Coliseum that was built back in the 30s. Yeah. Before World War II. And you're saying that fans need to be comfortable in this. You don't even have modern restrooms, Charlton. Okay? So your fans are not going to be comfortable with that, period, and no luxury suites. Yeah. So, but, when you look at how the face of this game has changed, Charlton, that so much money has been infused into pro football. A commercial Sunday is going to be $5 million. Wow. To get your 30 seconds on television. Your yearly salary will buy a commercial. Sounds good to me. You look at how this game has elevated up in American society and what it means to mainstream, Madison Avenue. Yep. This is the most watched sporting event in the world. People can talk about baseball World Series, which is a 7-game series. Yeah. You can talk about the NBA, the NHL, which are also 7-game series. Yep. But you put all 7 of those games together, Charlton, and they don't equal the magnetism of what a Super Bowl does to America and the world. That's a very, very good point, Big C. Before we get into the Super Bowl, I just want to ask you about the trends in the NFL. We talked about some of the success of Green Bay earlier when the Super Bowl series started, and then the Miami Dolphins, and then the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Oakland Raiders. The next, I would guess you would say, franchise team became none other than the San Francisco 49ers when they started winning under Bill Walsh. And they had that win up in Pontiac, Michigan, where they beat Cincinnati, the Ickey Woods team with the Ickey Woods Shuffle and all that jazz. And then the 49ers went on to become a dynasty under Joe Montana and then Steve Young. And who would have thought that it would have been surpassed by what New England's doing now? What made the 49ers great back then? And could they compete against the way the Patriots have dominated the NFL over the past, 12 years, Big C? Your thoughts? Well, Charlton, I like the 49ers dynasty. I like what the Patriots have done of late. Yeah. But the dynasty that you skipped over was the Washington Redskins, Charlton. Yeah. Well, when you want to talk about a real dynasty, because they did it with 3 different quarterbacks. Oh, yeah. 3 different Super Bowl victories. No other team has done that. The Steelers did 4 with Bradshaw. Yeah. The Dolphins did theirs with Greasy. The Cowboys did theirs with Staubach prior to Aikman coming along, Charlton. 49ers were young with 1. and Montana was a couple.
Yeah.
But when you think about what Joe Gibbs did with the Washington Redskins, not only did he have different running backs, Charlton,
yeah,
he had different quarterbacks. He had turnover in his organization, but he was still able to get this organization back to the championship game, Charlton. First with Joe Theismann, then with Doug Williams, then with Mark Rippon. And, you know, John Riggins was a running back. You had Timmy Smith as a running back, Charlton.
Yeah.
You had Gerald Riggs as a running back. This guy was able to win, Charlton, with a plethora of players. That shows you the greatness of his coaching. You know, Bobby Beathard as the GM. This organization was a solid organization from top to bottom. It did not rely on the same players over and over. The only thing that's been close to that is what the Patriots have done.
Yeah.
When you think about all of their Super Bowls that they've been in under this current regime, Charlton, and this will be their eighth.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
Eighth Super Bowl on Sunday. There's been one constant. That's Tom Brady at quarterback.
Yeah.
Every year, you know, seems like he's had different running backs. Every time you turn around, the offensive line has constantly changed.
Yeah.
No one knows who were on the defense 2 Super Bowls ago.
That's a good point.
For the Patriots.
Yeah.
And so when you think about an organization having a blueprint, it's the New England Patriots. They have the same type of blueprint that the Washington Redskins have.
Yeah.
It's the next man up mentality. We're not going to sit around here and let you get fat and happy because you won a Super Bowl. And think that you don't have to play anymore because you've reached the ultimate goal.
Yep.
The minute they see a little bit of complacentness, Charlton, you're gone. They don't care who you are. You're gone. I mean, when you look up and down that roster, it has changed over and over. And if you added up the number of players that they've had in those 8 Super Bowls, Charlton, you're talking a couple hundred players.
Yeah, they've done it the right way, and we know that, you know, after the Niners had their run, then we had the Dallas Cowboys, and they had, you know, they won 3 Super Bowls also, and they were always competing with San Francisco. But going back to Brady, and he was not what we see today, how we clamor around the TV, and they're going to say who's going to be the number 1 draft pick, who's going to be the number 2 guy, and who's going to get paid the most money. You know, he was not a number 1 pick at all out of Michigan. But in 2002, that Super Bowl against the St. Louis Rams, I think they were called the greatest show on turf for the Rams at the time. And New England comes in there and kicks a winning field goal as time's running out to win a 20-17 Super Bowl. That game was down in New Orleans. Now, I know that's one of my first Super Bowls that I covered. And I know there were a lot of Rams out drinking a lot of stuff down in New Orleans. And some people said it was not Gatorade after they all woke up with that butt whooping, Big C. So that's where it all started. Brady was a young man then. We go back to Super Bowl I when we had that. You had the Kansas City and you had the Green Bay in 1967, the AFL and the CFL, AFL and NFL championship game. Look at what we have now. The Super Bowl has become more like a holiday. It's not just a game anymore. It's become more of a holiday. And the Patriots seem to be the Denzel Washington of that holiday. You can always expect them to show up. Going back to 2002, did they know what they had, Big C, when they got the chance to knock off the Rams, who everybody thought was going to repeat? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, you know, no one knows what they have. You know, the Super Bowl is a game of opportunity, Charlton, making the right play at the right time. And you think about how the Patriots trailed this game, and the Rams kind of gave it away because they expected to win. And they didn't come out with that same luster that they had come out with throughout the season and the previous year, Charlton, the greatest show on turf. They were held in check by that defense of Belichick. You know, they're with the Patriots, and Romeo Crennel was the defensive coordinator at that time. You know, this is a team that came out, and they knew they were the underdog. And they were just out having fun when you look at it. There was no pressure on the Patriots at that time. You think about it, this was a Super Bowl that had a free agent quarterback and a 6th-round draft pick as a quarterback playing. It wasn't that. For what he's accomplished. You think about Foles, Charlton, in the playoffs. Foles has the highest quarterback rating in the playoffs of any quarterback who's completed who's attempted 100 passes. In NFL history.
Wow.
Okay? That's higher than Joe Montana. He's at a 78% completion ratio. Joe Montana was at 75. And you think about his overall QB rating from a couple years ago when he was the starter in Philadelphia, Charlton, and coming back now, and everybody wants to say Carson Wentz. Go back to the New York Giants when Jeff Hostetler started the Super Bowl down in Tampa Bay. for the New York Giants, and they beat the Buffalo Bills, okay?
Yep.
Phil Simms, all-pro quarterback, had won a Super Bowl already, beating the Denver Broncos down in Pasadena in a blowout game.
Yeah.
The following season, Charlton, you know who was the starting quarterback in New York?
Who's that?
Jeff Hostetler. Not Phil Simms.
Yeah.
Jeff Hostetler. So this is the same type of scenario that you have with Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. If Philadelphia goes on and wins this game, how do you bench Nick Foles? I don't care what Carson Wentz being a potential MVP. Phil Simms was that already.
Yeah.
If you got a guy who wins the Super Bowl, how do you bench him? That's the question.
Yeah.
I mean, and he has a couple years left on his contract.
Yeah.
How do you trade him? You know,
yeah.
That's the quandary that a team would have in Philadelphia next year if Philadelphia goes on and wins this game.
Well, I doubt they'll treat him the way the Washington Redskins treated Doug Williams after he threw 5 touchdowns in the first half of the Super Bowl against Denver. That point you brought up is very salient, Big C. Does it take the shine off of Carson Wentz being the NFL MVP? And Nick Foles comes in and plays just as well. And in fact, plays even better. No matter what you think about what Wentz could have done, he did not get them to the Super Bowl. Okay, you could say injury aside, but think about it. Foles knocked off last year's MVP and Ryan to get to the Super Bowl. It's not as if they just fell, and then they went up against Minnesota, the best defense in the NFC this year, and got there. So if Foles gets it done, it's because the Eagles' defense has been their Denzel Washington. Just like in Denzel in the movie, you could expect him to be great. If it's a Robert Redford, if it's Denzel Washington, if you look at anyone that you consider that's going to be great, and that guy shows up all the time, their defense has been that. You could even call them, the reason they may win this game is not because it's going to be an upset or anything. The only thing they may fall behind coaching-wise to the experience of Belichick and all of his success in the games. Let me get your thoughts, Big C, on 2 things here. If we look at Foles and what you just mentioned, there's no pressure on him to win. I mean, he has no pressure. No one's expecting anything out of Nick Foles other than Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. There's a lot of pressure on Brady, and people may not want to agree with this, but there's also some infighting between Belichick and Brady and Kraft. And I know they want to keep that hush-hush, but the only thing that can hurt them, it seems, outside of a team that just beats them, is you just brought it up. None of their championships have gone by more than a touchdown. They've all been a field goal or maybe 4 points or so. They've always come on to win late or either hold on late. The last 2 Super Bowls, the one against Seattle, there's no reason Seattle should have lost that game, but that's foolishness in coaching. Same thing with Atlanta last year. If you can't keep running the ball when you're up 28-3, it doesn't make any sense. If they find themselves down again, 10 points going into the fourth quarter, sometimes your luck runs out on you, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, last year's victory against Atlanta, Charlton, was New England's largest margin of victory in Super Bowls, and that was 6 points.
Yeah.
And they came in overtime because they didn't have to kick an extra point.
Yeah.
Other than that, Charlton, their largest margin of victory has only been 4.
Yeah.
You know, so when you think about a team not being able to dominate in this Super Bowl era, that 4 points game against Seattle.
Yeah.
You know, everything else was a field goal by Vinatieri.
Yeah.
So this is not a team that has blown people out. When you look at teams that have gotten to Super Bowls, Charlton, with backup quarterbacks like Nick Foles, the Miami Dolphins in their perfect season, got to a Super Bowl with a backup quarterback. Joe Gilliam got the Steelers to a Super Bowl as a backup quarterback. With Doug Williams made it to a Super Bowl as a backup quarterback.
Yeah.
You look at, we talked about the Washington Redskins with him. We looked at Jeff Hostetler getting the Giants to the Super Bowl as a backup quarterback. Kurt Warner was a backup quarterback when the Rams made it to the Super Bowl as the greatest show on turf.
Yeah.
So backup quarterbacks have gone to the Super Bowl and had some success, Charlton.
Yeah.
Everybody hasn't always been a penciled-in starter. Tom Brady's first Super Bowl got there as a backup quarterback, Charlton.
Yeah.
So when we look at the history of the Super Bowls, the backups have risen up and become the star on stage of the Super Bowl. And like we said, Brady has more Super Bowl victories than anybody, and he got his chance because Drew Bledsoe got hurt.
Yes.
And he led them to the Super Bowl in the Tuck Bowl against your friend John Gruden.
No, he's not my friend, Big C. He can be my friend if I want to share some of that $100 million, Big C. I want to get you one more thought on thing about with Belichick, and you brought up. We know that Patriots they've been steady, and even if they get taken out in the Super Bowl, it's because it's an upset. not just because of who's playing for Philadelphia and not having wins, etc. It would be an upset because they've been a tradition of excellence, especially when you think about the Super Bowl, whether they win or not, 8 straight AFC championship games. That's what you're playing up against also. You're going up against tradition and a coach that knows how to win. And I know we talk about Parcells. He had that special with Belichick, and they were doing something on ESPN, I think 30 for 30. But Parcells doesn't have any Super Bowl victories without Belichick being on his staff. I wish people would bring that point up because the man should be given more credit for that than what he is. Big C, does that make any sense? Just your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, he has no victories without Belichick on his staff. He has no losses without Belichick on his staff. Also, you got to realize Belichick was the defensive coordinator in New England when Parcells was the head coach, and that's where he got his first Super Bowl loss also against the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
So, but, Parcells' success mainly came with Belichick on his staff.
Yeah.
Whether it was with the Jets, whether it was with the Patriots, or whether it was with the Giants.
Yeah.
But Bill Belichick has separated himself as his own man, Jonathan, in his own style.
Yeah.
That he learned a long time ago that you have to have a veteran team to be consistent.
Yeah.
Early in his career, he wanted to stockpile a lot of draft picks. Then he realized as he got older and his quarterback got older, everything was about winning now, not 5 years from now, winning now.
Yeah.
So you start shuffling off players and bring in players that fit. You and I had a conversation prior to the draft last year, and even after the draft, that who had the best draft in the NFL.
Yeah.
Well, when we were talking about your friend Mel Kiper and Todd McKay, you guys would sit around.
No, we don't sit around.
About,
don't start those rumors.
Who was put together the best draft?
Yeah.
And we looked at the players that New England brought in via free agency and via trade.
Yeah.
They brought in players, Charlton, that had NFL experience.
Yeah.
Not worrying about upside or potential.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's what your friends McShay and Kiper say.
Yeah.
He has upside, he has potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bill Belichick will go out and get guys and say he has NFL playing experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you look at their record this year, Charlton, versus their record last year, I think it's identical at this point of the season.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
They're 15-3 at the same time last year going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
13-3 in the regular season.
Yeah.
And what they did, Charlton, was the players that they replaced them with players with experience.
Yep.
They didn't go out there and get this draft pick in the first round that couldn't play quarterback.
No.
They couldn't catch as a wide receiver because he was intimidated.
Right.
They couldn't run as a running back because he had never run against an NFL defense.
Yep.
They didn't go out and get some defensive back that, always played zone in college and couldn't realize what the idiosyncrasies of a coverage was in the NFL.
Yeah.
Or some linebacker who had not played 16 regular season games.
Yeah.
They went out through free agency and trade, Charlton, and brought in 10 players that had NFL experience.
Yeah.
They had 3 draft picks, Charlton. That was it. They got rid of everybody else.
Yeah.
And what happened, Charlton? They went back and made it to the Super Bowl.
Made it to the Super Bowl. It's a funny thing.
Now, you contrast with the teams that had the first 10 draft picks in the NFL, Charlton.
Yeah.
Okay? The teams that drafted in the top 10. When their draft grade came out that they were getting A's and B's, okay?
Yep.
The New England got a 1A plus. All right?
Yeah.
That's what they got.
Yeah. That's something else. And there's something to say about when I think about what Belichick does. You think Kraft would have ever, think about this, you think Kraft would have ever given John Gruden a 10-year, $100 million contract for anyone looking to build any team? Just look at think about that. Would Kraft ever give John Gruden a 10-year, $100 million contract? That shows you what's crazy again about the Raiders and all the reasons why they want to justify that. Last thing I want to close on quarterbacks, Big C, before I get your thoughts. I know we don't pick teams. We just want to see a good game. And I'm happy for every player that can get money and get a job. But I keep seeing Kirk Cousins trotted out on all the TV shows saying, Kurt, you're going to make some team a contender next year. Wasn't he just cut by the Washington Redskins, Big C? Your thoughts on this in my imagination?
Did they make the playoffs the last couple of years?
Not that I can see, Big Z. I've been Googling, but I can't find it.
So he couldn't make the team he was with a contender.
Right.
All of a sudden, he's going to go out and make somebody else a contender, Charlton.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to something we were just talking about, Belichick and the Patriots.
Yeah.
You talked about dynasties in the NFL making it to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
When you go back and you look at the Oakland Raiders, how they were built through a free agency.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Al Davis would go out and get these cast-offs from other teams. They would come in and win. The Washington Redskins did the same thing, Charlton.
Yep.
When you think about the quarterbacks they had, they all were cast-offs from other teams.
Yep.
With Beathard, they're the head coach.
Yep.
They built those teams up, Charlton.
Yeah.
And when you look at the 49ers, DeBartolo had no problem with Walsh going out and getting free agents.
Yep.
Bring them in that team. You think about on defense, Michael Carter, Ken Norton, Charles Haley.
Yeah.
Great defensive stalwart players, Charlton.
Yeah.
That he brought in, Matt Millen at linebacker.
Yeah.
He brought in players that had NFL experience. On off the line, brought in Barton.
Yeah.
Who had experience. He brought in Oates, who had experience. He brought players into that organization that he didn't need to draft, that he didn't need to develop.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen with New England.
Yeah.
And you want to know how teams stay on the top of the heap?
Yeah.
Look at the free agent market, Charlton, and look and see who they bring in. Don't worry about a guy, what he's going to be 3 years from now, 4 years from now at the end of his contract.
Yeah.
What is he going to be this season on the contract that I'm giving him?
Big C, that's such a great point. I think people would spend more time, and I love NFL, I'm kind of hooked on it too, but as people spend so much time looking at what the prognosticators think, who's going to be drafted, and they put on these draft shows, they measure how tall a guy is, his wingspan, how fast he runs. If they really want to educate people, they should spend as much time around the New England Patriots organization and show that, Big C. That's what's real, Big C. I want to get your thoughts on, we have Super Bowl 52 coming up Sunday, February 4th, Black History Month. It's a 6:30 Eastern Time kickoff on NBC Sports. The great Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth, Michelle Tafoya have that play-by-play. And right now the Patriots are a 4.5-point favorite. That slide may go up or down a point. You just never know. A lot of money in Vegas has been pouring in on Philadelphia. But Big C, I just want to get your thoughts on what we can expect to see as we close out for our Super Bowl show on this beautiful Black History Month. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, you got two teams that play tremendous defense, and that's what's being overlooked right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's concentrating on Tom Brady, saying that he's a better quarterback than Nick Foles. Statistically, in the playoffs, nobody has been better than Nick Foles all year long in the playoffs, Charlton. Everybody that has played, and all the quarterbacks that he beat Matt Ryan, last year's MVP, okay?
Yeah.
Super Bowl quarterback. He beat Case Keenum, the hottest quarterback in the NFC this season. People were talking about an MVP candidate.
Yeah.
Now next on his target list is Tom Brady.
Yeah.
He's outperformed Tom Brady in the playoffs, Charlton. Nick Foles has not played from behind like Tom Brady has. You think about Tom Brady. Tom Brady in the playoffs has been like Matthew Stafford.
Yeah.
Fortunate enough for him, he's won the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he's been playing from behind. And as you say, you can only play with house money so often.
Yeah.
I mean, the only time he has lost it in the Super Bowls, Charlton, is that there's been some spectacular catch that is made.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
When you think about Tyree and Manningham making these spectacular catches, and that was 10 years ago with Tyree that he made the catch with the Giants. And we talked about the 10s yesterday, didn't we?
Yep, the 10s. You brought it up.
I guess that's another 10. with Michael, Tyree, Belichick. So maybe it's New England in this game, Joe.
And you never know. They might win by 10, so we'll have to figure it out on this beautiful Black History Month. I hope that everybody stays safe for the Super Bowl holiday and everybody has a good time watching good football. Big C, back in the day, there was a man by the name of Drew Bundini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man. He would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men, rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, in the sports universe, I guess hunting is part of the sports universe. I don't know if what we're going to be doing is hunting or poaching, but there's going to be a couple of lucky or unlucky animals that's going to donate their souls to our table this weekend.
Man.
And we're going to go out tonight in our camouflage gear and hopefully not get spotted.
That is so funny, Big Z. I hope you guys have some good eating down south. I know that's why you guys are healthier, because you eat the fruit when it's fresh, Big Z. I want to say when you can find it fresh every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. Worldwide, you can follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network. We're on the #1 network in the United States of America, and Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and the good old boys down south. As we always tell you, there's never, ever any excuse for domestic violence. If you know any woman going through that garbage, please call 911, because no woman should ever have to go through that garbage all on her own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.